We are live on DSTV, channel 421, Go TV 144. Thanks for choosing us. This is Joy News Prime. Our headlines this hour. As Ghanaians await government intervention in the rapid price change of petrol and diesel, LPG is set to go up the third time this year. We'll hear from the LPG Marketers Association and find out how you can help yourself.
Of us have always said that when it comes to because it's a deregulated market, so what most people should do is to look out for the cheaper filling stations and buy from.
Also, Caretaker Minister for Gender and Children Ministry, Cecilia Abunadapa, has announced that the expansion of the school feeding program has been put on hold for the ministry to settle debts owed caterers and other service providers.
The expansion of the program is on hold. We are clearing all arrears of caterers and putting in place measures to ensure effective and efficient service delivery.
In our Ghana Month series of stories themed around lesser-known Ghanaian languages, we'll tell you about the Wasa language and why school children cannot speak it.
It's sad because my language is dying.
When the person is caught speaking the vernacular, the person is sent to the White House to clean up that place or caned.
At 8 p.m., I'll hand you over to Charles Aite and Gary for Prime Business and Sports. But Charles, what should people look forward to?
Well, tonight the Ministry of Agriculture is hinting of trying times for Ghana's flagship Planting for Food and Jobs program, citing the Ukraine-Russia conflict, saying that it has escalated global fertilizer prices.
It's happening in the international market. Russia, being a country that produces a lot of fertilizers, will support of Ukraine and other countries. And the imminent war that is all over the whole world, supplies will be a challenge. And
coming up in Showbiz, rapper Trigmatic expresses concern about how Ghanaian artists are retired before their time.
Still heard my dad play songs from the 70s.
Yeah.
And even when I grew, I still heard him grow with that music.
Those songs, yeah.
You know, but now we shove songs away easily. Even not songs, even actors, actresses.
We retire them quickly.
We retire them.
And coming up later in Prime Sports.
Chelsea fans look away. Roman Abramovich confirms he will sell Chelsea amid Russia's invasion of Ukraine. What does it mean? If you're a supporter, stay with us.
I'm Ernest Mino, and this is your home of independent, fearless, and credible journalism. Stay tuned for details. Thanks again for choosing us. Let's settle for the details now. The news is replete with the rising cost of fuel, mainly petrol and diesel, and we'll bring you updates on that shortly. But have you paid attention to the cost of liquefied petroleum gas, that's LPG? Well, that has also seen some astronomical increase. And in case you didn't know, LPG will go up by about 5% tomorrow. In fact, some outlets have begun implementing that already. We made some checks. Now, LPG is now 9 Ghana cedis, 76 pesos per kilo, which translates to about 140 Ghana cedis for your 14.5 kg cylinder. And of course, that is what you will get when you get to the pumps tomorrow. We'll be speaking shortly to the LPG Marketers Association, and of course Kofi Ejay of our research desk will also join us in the studio to bring us some updates, some data on what the price change has been over the period, at least from last year up until now. But there's been significant change in the price window from January to March. Let's speak to Gabriel Kumi. He is Vice President of the LPG Marketers Association. Mr. Kumi, thank you for your time here on Joy News Prime. First of all, help us understand what goes into the pricing.
Thank you very much, and good evening to your viewers. Basically, there's a price build-up, and the item that goes into the pricing are the cost of the product, and then we'll have the taxes and the margins adding up to the cost of the product, come up with the pump price. So basically, we have the margins, and then we have the taxes on the product, in addition to the cost of the product.
So it appears that you're pushing everything on the consumer. No room for cushioning?
We tried very hard to cushion consumers, but unfortunately, this is buying and selling issue. So if you go and buy the product at 2 cedis, you cannot sell it less than 2 cedis. You have to add your taxes to get to about 3 cedis. You have to add your margins to get to about 3 cedis. So is the price, the cost price of the products that we buy it, that determine the taxes and the margins are constant on the product. So once you have things like the crude oil price shooting up, unfortunately our CD also not doing too well, then you expect that the cost of the product will go up. And once the cost goes up, keep moving up, and you have a constant taxes and levies on the product, you expect that the price will continue to go up.
But at the outlets, are there other factors that influence the change? Because our checks today indicate that even though we have a window of about 5% increase, which should translate to about 140 if you're having 14.5 kg, some are selling up to 150 Ghana cedis. Are there other components that influence the price?
Unfortunately, okay, we are in a price deregulation. And depending on the marketer's strategy, there is some margins that the marketer can play with. And let's say if the margin is 40 cedis, the marketer can decide to charge 40 pesos, the marketer can decide to charge 30, some are charging 35, some are charging up to the 40, the full 40. So it depends on the strategy that the marketer is adopting. Okay. But there is kind of a ceiling that you cannot go beyond. But marketers, because we are deregulated, marketers always play within the margin to be able to have customers or otherwise.
The price change has been quite rapid, at least this year alone, and we'll look into the data shortly. But for you as marketers, how is this affecting your business?
This will obviously negatively affect our business. Because you know LPG is highly price sensitive. It has an elastic demand. So the little persuade that you increase the price of the product with will go a long way to affect the consumption of the product and the purchase of the product. So obviously business is not doing too well, because if you look at the statistics, consumption is on the decline now. Consumption of LPG is on a serious decline. And if measures are not taken, if the price continue to go up as it's doing now, we are afraid consumption will continue to decline, and there will be a lot of negative consequences to that. Some of our members are no longer able to keep employment because we're dealing with volumes. Once the volume goes down, you cannot have the necessary margins to be able to sustain your employees. Okay. So some of our members have started laying off workers. We are not growing, so the consequences are quite dire.
Stay with me, but let's stay on the consequences, and I'll come to you, Mr. Kumi, on what we can do. But let's stay on the consequence and bring in Dr. Abdullahi Darimani, who is a lecturer at the Department of Environmental Management, the University of Energy and Natural Resources, Sunyani. Grateful for your time, sir. First of all, help us understand what the consumption of LPG is currently, because I know you look into this area of energy. You'd have to unmute your device, Dr. Darimani. Okay, we seem to have a challenge there with the connection of Dr. Darimani. Let's go to Suleimana Yusuf, Director of Research at the Center for Climate Change and Food Security. Thank you very much, Suleimana, for joining us here on Join His Prime. What are your thoughts on this phenomenon? You had Mr. Kumi talk about the effect on their business and what it means for employment as well. But for you, who looks at the environment, what should be our concern? Why should we be concerned?
Thank you very much, and good evening to your cherished viewers and listeners. Yeah, so we know that LPG is very low in carbon emissions, and that is why, the globe is accepting it, and that is why Ghana has a policy to promote it, because it has favorable environmental outcomes. Now, if LPG is going up, as my colleague said, for sure, by way of economic assumptions, it means that people are not going to consume much of it. And when that happens, then Ghana's carbon footprint is going to increase. Now, if you look at the data for carbon emissions, if you look at Ghana, steadily we increase annually by almost 3.75%. So annually our carbon footprint increases by 3.75%. And now if you look at the latest data, which was in 2016, we almost, our carbon footprint is around 15 million metric tons, which is quite huge. Even though if you do a global average comparison, you say, yeah, global average is around 4.75%, and Ghana is doing around 0.4%. So 0.04%, which is our contribution globally to the carbon emissions or carbon footprints. But what we need to be concerned about is that, for sure, if you do this analysis, it is no brainer to see that yes, your population is not that huge, and so if you don't have a huge population, you don't expect that your carbon footprint will be as huge as, let's say, China or America or other countries that have higher populations. But what you can infer from increases in LPG LPG gas prices is that when the prices increase and people begin to consume less of it, then you are indirectly increasing your carbon footprint, because people will go back to fossil fuels, which the whole world is fighting against. The world is trying to minimize or keep the consumption of fossil fuels at minimum. But if your LPG gas, which is environmentally friendly, is becoming costly, then people will not look at it, or people will look for options. For example, going into charcoal and using other forms of firewood. And all these sources of energy increases carbon emissions.
So at this level, Suleimana, let me just interject. At this level, looking at what we have, would you say the concern about the environmental impact is legitimate or exaggerated, considering the price levels and the rapid changes?
Yes, you see, we are trying to keep carbon emissions at minimum. And so even if it's a marginal increase, it is still a source of concern. Okay. So once we can infer from, it is no brainer that once the prices have increased, people will resort to other modes of energy which is not environmentally friendly or which are not green in nature. And so even no matter how marginal it is, it should be a source of concern, because that is the global standard, to reduce the consumption of fossil fuels as much as possible. And it is not only just about the carbon footprint increases, but also look at the environmental concerns. People will resort to cutting firewood, to burn charcoal just to meet their energy demands because of the increases in price of LPG. That is also a source of concern. So it is not to belabor the point, and we must not belittle the increases in our carbon footprints, because it is if you like, it is a consequence of LPG gases, because no matter how little the carbon footprint is, it is still a source of concern, because we want to make the world green as much as possible.
Kindly hold it for me. We'll talk about how we can resolve this, but let me return to Gabriel Kumi on that. Mr. Kumi, what can be done from your perspective to address the sharp increase in the prices and the rapid nature of it?
It's for a very good reason that Cabinet has set a target for the consumption of LPG in Ghana. His Excellency and his Cabinet wants Ghana to increase its consumption of LPG from the current 25% penetration level to 50% by the year 2030. Obviously, there is a lot of wisdom behind that. Apart from what my colleague has spoken about, our rivers are drying up. Ghana's forest is the fastest depleting in West Africa. And it's all because we are not making use of LPG. We are not using enough LPG, and we are still cutting down the few trees that we have around and destroying our environment and eventually destroying our country. So there is a need for us to take very, very, very drastic and practical measures to ensure that we increase the consumption of LPG. As I said, this directive came from Cabinet. It's not any ministry or any agency that set the target to increase consumption of LPG from 25% penetration to 50% by the year 2030. It's the president and his cabinet that set that it's such a target. But you can't eat your cake and have it. You cannot set such a laudable objective and at the same time we sit down and watch price of LPG escalate to the level that the ordinary Ghanaian is not able to afford the product. Some West Africa countries are indeed subsidizing LPG. Go to La Côte d'Ivoire. They are subsidizing the LPG to the tune of over 30%. But in Ghana, we have moved from subsidy to full cost recovery, and now we are putting almost 20% tax on the product.
And so for you, what? The removal of the taxes will do the magic?
We believe the first step government must take is to take off the taxes from the product. Remove the taxes completely. And then the way prices are escalating even goes to buttress our consistent and persistent call over the past 4 or 5 years for government to remove taxes from LPG if it really is serious at attaining that objective. Otherwise, it's impossible. There's no way. If we keep prices at where it is and we keep all these taxes on the product, it's simply impossible for us to achieve that 50% penetration by the year 2030.
Very well.
Unless they want to tell us that that target is simply on paper. We don't mean it. But we take any directive from cabinet very seriously.
Well, Mr. Gumi, I'm grateful that you could join us with your thoughts on this subject. That's the Vice President of the LPG Marketers Association. We have Dr. Abdullahi Darimani back with us. He's a lecturer at the Department of Environmental Management, University of Energy and Natural Resources in Sunyani. Doc, thank you very much for your time here on Joy News Prime. Give us some perspective on the use of LPG, the penetration level as far as you have studied, and whether the fears about the increase is legitimate.
Thank you very much, and thank you for putting me on the program. Let me apologize for the break in transmission.
That's fine, sir.
First of all, let me underline the point that the environment is so critical that we will leave its management and care by chance. Because the environment is the repository of all manner of waste, and it is the supply of all the raw material that we need for survival and development. In fact, trees in particular are so critical for our survival in the sense that they serve as groundwater recharge and they provide us with energy. And as one of my colleagues indicated, trees generally serve as carbon sink. And therefore, it's not for nothing that governments over the years have emphasized the need for the availability of liquefied petroleum gas. Besides it being clean, and besides it being a source for reduction on dependence on the vegetation, it is very good for domestic use. Now, unfortunately, if the price of LPG continue to increase, it implies that there is likely to be a shift from dependence on LPG to dependence on alternative sources of energy. Now, one of the alternative sources could be electricity. Unfortunately, the price of electricity is also matching with the price for LPG. And therefore, where people are likely to shift to is to shift to the dependence on charcoal, wood fuel, and all of that. Now, in terms of the justification for the price, it's important that we would need to know the margin for increase, because price adjustment is not necessarily bad in itself, because cost has to be recovered for the production of LPG.
Okay.
What should be worried about is the margin of increase. The margin of increase that is likely to shift demand for electricity, for LPG gas into other sources of increased energy. That should be a major concern for us. Otherwise, increases per se may not necessarily be a disincentive.
Very well. I'm grateful for your time, Dr. Darimani. Thank you so much for joining us here on Joy News Prime. And of course, we can now bring you the data as our research text has been looking at on really what the changes have been over the last few days and weeks. In fact, we'll go back to 2021 to do some comparison. Kofi J of our research desk joins us in the studio. Kofi, take us through what the data is looking like.
All right, so we've been tracking the export price of LPG from the first window of January in 2021 to the latest window, which is the first March 2022. So if you realize there's been a steady increase from what we had in the first window of January, which is 5 cedis, 90 pesos per kilo, and to what we have currently, which is being projected at 9 cedis, 76 pesos, which is approximately 9 cedis, 80 pesos. But if you do a comparative analysis, you realize that from the first window of March 2021, if you compare that to the first window of 2022, this is more or less like more than a 53% rise from the 6 cedis, 40 pesos per kilo we had in the first window in March in 2021 to what we are having.
So in March 2021, the figure stood at 6.4.
Exactly.
And in March 2022, we are looking at 9.8.
Exactly. 9 cedis, 80 pesos.
80 pesos.
Approximately. But if you compare what the figure was in 1st of October, that was 7 cedis, 90 pesos. If you compare that to what we have, which is 9 cedis, 80 pesos, that will be an increase of about more than 23%. Now, this simply means that if you have a cylinder which is 14 kilos, to be paying slightly more than 136 cedis and some pesos, and then if you have a cylinder which is 18 kilos, you also be paying 175 cedis, and some coins.
Kofi, thank you very much for bringing us those details. It is imagined that some Ghanaians living in Ukraine are unwilling to return to Ghana in spite of government's evacuation plan. The first batch of 17 citizens evacuated from Ukraine touched down in Ghana yesterday with the hope that more will follow in the coming days. At a meeting between officials of the Foreign Affairs Ministry and the family members of affected persons, it came up that some of them are unwilling to be evacuated.
Is a very dicey one, and as I said this morning at the conference center, parents need to advise their children to be wise. A lot of young men and women who are listening to other voices and are creating imaginary situation for themselves that doesn't exist. Ukraine is not a Schengen country, and what I mean by that is that the visa you get to Ukraine is only for Ukraine. Hungary is a Schengen country, so Hungarian visa will take you to the whole of Europe. Czech Republic is a Schengen country. Most of those neighboring are the NATO countries, but Ukraine is not. And so people studying in Ukraine are a little bit limited. And most of the students, when they cross the border into maybe Czech Republic or Hungary, they assume they've got into safe haven, so they can take advantage. That is ignorance. Why am I saying it's ignorance? Hungary, for instance, is a police state. I studied there and I can tell you. Even if you go and hide in a toilet or in the bathroom or in the kitchen, in 72 hours, they will know where you are. So if our students don't take advantage of the evacuation process now, that is being done by government and by courtesy of benevolent men and women, philanthropists who are helping, and that lapse or that time passes, you'll be on your own.
So that's Evangelist Lawrence Tete admonishing the students to return home. The Foreign Affairs Minister, Deputy, Kweku Amprechum Sapong, also warned that it's risky to continue to live in that country. He appealed to them to come back home.
We are receiving those who are not all students who have crossed into the other countries or neighboring countries want to come readily now. As I walk in here today, a parent called me aside and said to him that, Minister, my son has crossed into, is it Hungary or Poland? And he tells him Warsaw. He says he's in Warsaw. He wants to spend a couple of days there before coming down. I say, hey, You are in this kind of situation, you run out of this traumatic situation, you are in a safe place, we are trying to get you home, you say we should leave you to spend some few days there. And that's again, Reverend Dr. Tete was saying, there are others who think that Hungary is a EU country, right? So once they've gotten into a EU country, maybe it will be possible for them, because normally when you are traveling between EU countries, you get to the border, nobody bothers to ask you of your passport or anything of that sort. So you are likely to have some of the students who think they can take advantage of the situation. We've all been students before, we've all been kids before, and we know some of the things, some of the ideas that we have, and we have it on record. Not everybody wants to come.
Let's catch a flight to Hungary now and speak to the leader of the student union there, Gabriel Asante. Gabriel, thank you so much for joining us here on Joy News Prime. Give us an idea of how many students you have currently in Hungary, those who have moved from Ukraine following the conflict there.
Very much and good evening. Currently, I am in Hungary so far from Sunday till today. We haven't closed for the day, but on the first day we had 26, on the second day we had 70 students, the same for the third day, and today, so far as I was about stepping out, coming to talk to you, and I checked the data, we have 29 students, or about 195 students as of now. So this is the current number that we have in Hungary.
199 Ghanaian students in Hungary at the moment. How are you managing them?
195 Ghanaian students.
Very well.
So for now, we have tried to rely on our own and other donations from the Hungarian community. They have been so superb. They have been donating to us, and also even offering accommodation to some of them. Apart from the initial days that we were trying to manage our own resources that we have on ourselves to get accommodations and temporary rooms for them. Since then, the Hungarian community has been very helpful. And so for now, we have been dependent on ourselves, waiting for support from the higher authorities so that we can see the next steps to take.
Okay, you say you're waiting for support, but there's an evacuation plan by government. Have you gotten in touch with the, the people in charge of this? I mean, there have been hotlines given, contact numbers for you to get in touch with officials to help government evacuate these students.
Yes, we are in touch with governments. We almost communicate on phone every day. Yesterday, we had officials from the Berlin and the Austrian missions to come and assist us as well. Yesterday evening, so some of them were here today. We got information that ambassador, because Hungary is under Czech Republic, it's under Czech Republic mission, and so we are hoping that maybe tomorrow or the next day the ambassador too will be here to support. So far, we communicate for communication, and what is going on, we communicate every day.
But we understand there are some of the students who are unwilling to return home. Is that right?
That is right.
What reasons have they given?
That is right. For us, what we are doing here, once the student who is a Ghanaian come, and we bring them to the holding place, we make sure that we take all their data, their details, their name, their passport ID, and all the information that are necessary. After that, we chat with them, we talk with them, and try to cite them of what they have gone through, and we have a conversation with them. If you talk to them, most of the reasons that some students have cited, especially one that can come on top of my mind now, is one student was citing the fact that he just enrolled in a school in Hungary and paid a school fees of about $2,000. And so just now, this thing has happened. He doesn't know what to do, and so he has to stay back and see how the situation will go, and if there will be opportunity for him to further his education. Because if he comes back to Ghana, he has spent a lot of money and doesn't know how he's going to pay for that money. And others too have cited the reason they have family members in other Schengen area, because as you know, Hungary is part of Schengen area, and so once you are here, you have access to other European countries, and so they would like to visit them than going back to Ghana. So there are a lot of reasons, but these are the ones that are mostly cited by citizens and by some of the students that we have received, and some also are of the opinion that coming back to Ghana they will have a lesser opportunities compared to trying to find their way to stay here. So these are the issues, and these are the reasons some of our students we have received have given us.
And very finally, Gabriel, before you go, we understand that because you have had to take in your compatriots in Hungary, those of you who are originally settled there or are there for school are stretched in terms of resources, and many of you are on government scholarships, and your stipends are not coming. Is that the situation?
That is true. That is very true. Our stipends are not coming. Since last quarter of last 2021, which is October, November, December, our stipends have not come this quarter, first quarter of 2022. January, February, March, as we just entered to, have not come. So even today, the student leaders here have made a press statement. We have released a press statement to this effect, admonishing the government to support.
Gabriel, thank you very much. That's Gabriel Asante. He is president of the Student Union in Hungary. They are taking in their compatriots who have been hit by the conflict in Ukraine. And some of them, unfortunately, are not willing to return. But officials are definitely in touch with the leadership. Let's see how that goes. Still to come here on Join News Prime, Caretaker Minister for Gender and Children Ministry, Cecilia Abnadapa, has announced that the expansion of the school feeding program has been put on hold for the ministry to settle debts owed caretakers and other service providers.
Currently, the expansion of the program is on hold. We are clearing all arrears of caterers and putting in place measures to ensure effective and efficient service delivery.
And in our Ghana Month series of stories themed around lesser-known Ghanaian languages, we'll tell you about the Wasa language and why school children are unable to speak it.
I feel sad because my language is dying.
When the person is caught speaking the vernacular, the person is sent to the White House to clean up that place or caned.
Details of these and more after the break. Don't go away. Thanks for staying with us here on Joy News Prime. Now, schools and students who also wish to enjoy the school feeding program would have to wait a bit longer, as the ministry has announced that the expansion of the program is on hold until further notice. Responding to a question from the Yilo Krobo MP on when the program would be extended to some schools within his constituency, the Caretaker Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection said the program has significant debts that must be taken care of before the expansion can happen.
So, Speaker, currently the expansion of the program is on hold. We are clearing all arrears of caterers and putting in place measures to ensure effective and efficient service delivery to all beneficiary schools, as well as the caterers. We are also putting in place a management information system to enhance efficiency and effectiveness of the system. We shall surely inform this August House when we are ready to expand the program to cover additional schools. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You may know Asante Tree, Eve, or Ga, but do you know about the Wasa language? Spoken in the Western region, it's one of the languages covering the most geographical space in the west coast of Ghana, and yet many natives cannot read, speak, or even write it. School children in the area where it is spoken say the fear of getting punished in school scares them from speaking it. In the second of our series on stories celebrating Ghana Month, John News' Justice Bedu traveled to Dabuase in the Wasa East District, and here's his report.
Like Sechirem, Kofa Sechirem, if you say that, nobody will understand. Sechirem, that is scissors, pair of scissors, apaso. We call it apaso. If I say apaso, you understand. But when I say Sechirem, you don't know. Anechibodro, which is tomatoes, you don't know. A roko, that's salt, the hard ones, not the smooth, they don't know. Mrabra, that is the smooth one. Salt, the smooth one. Hey, so we have the anichibo, a roko, then the mrabra. All this they don't know. We have animal like domestic animal like bottom. If what says we have another name for that. So if you say bottom, you understand. But when you go in, they will not get it. Bottom, we call it a SMP.
Which team did Michael Essien play for in England? Tell us.
It is a quiz day today. All the children from schools in Daboase have come to compete for honors. Daboase is in the heartland of Wassa, one of the largest ethnic groups in the Western region. Many of the children taking part in today's quiz are all natives. A lot of them know no Wassa language at all.
Your major question.
After the Wassa language, I'm not familiar with it because at home there's something like Wassa.
Many people don't speak Wassa here because they are not taught to speak it. They are not allowed.
On the walls of the school, bold writings warning children against speaking Ghanaian languages. Instead, asking that speaking of English be prioritized. Those who have gone against this order have paid the price.
When the person is caught speaking the vernacular, the person is sent to the White House to clean up that place or caned.
It is mostly advised that the English language and the French should be spoken more so that we can cope with modernity.
Wassa is the language of the Wassa people. It sounds like a transition between Fanti and Asante, and very much like the Bono language too. The Wassa people cover one of the largest land areas in the Western region, with major towns like Takwa, Bogoso, Prestia, and Mpoho. Close to 300,000 people speak it.
I am Lawrence Kwame Daniel. My friends, we all came, some left, and I said, no, I will not go to any place. I want to develop my district. Because that time, there were shortage of teachers, and I said, once I've been trained, I'll have to work in my district and then also develop the district. So I've spent 41 years here. I'm sad. I feel sad that Wassa language is dying. With Wassa, we've contributed a lot. I feel sad because my language is dying.
Wassa is not studied in school, and the people who speak it, like teacher Afusa, are concerned that their language may be on the brink.
I know this lady or this man is from Wassa here, but he is not speaking, she or he is not speaking the language because the fish are.
By the power invested in you.
Justice Peidu, Joy News, Daboase.
SIPLA as the winners. Congratulations, SIPLA.
So that is Justice Beidu's report. Let's look at some data on literacy as far as languages in Ghana is concerned. Kofi Ajay again is here. He's from with our research desk. Kofi, you've been digging up the data on our literacy rate with languages.
Exactly, and so as part of our Ghana Month series, we've been doing some digging on the literacy rate of Ghanaian languages versus the English language.
Okay.
So let's start with the English language. So on the national scale, we have population 6 years and older. We have as high as 96.3% being literate. That's reading and writing of the English language.
Okay.
If you break this down to rural and urban, so we have 96.1 being the rural areas, and then if you look at the urban areas, if you look at the rural areas, that's 94.8% being in the rural area. So as expected, we have more, the figure in the urban area is higher than that in the rural area. Now, if you look at our own language, the Ghanaian language, you can see that, there's sharp...
Just about half
Exactly.
Of
so
what
if you
you're
look at
doing.
literacy rate on the national scale, those who can read and write the English language 6 years and older, it's just 52.8%. Which is, lower than what we have when we compare it to that of the English.
To English at the national level.
Exactly. If you compare that to, if you break it down to rural and urban, we have the urban area 53.1, which is slightly above the national scale. And then if you look at the rural area, it decreases again to 52.2%.
Okay.
Now the next one, talks about, we are, how do you call it? We are zeroing in on the, let's talk about the 6 years and older. First one we look at was 6 years and older. Let's compare it to
11 and older, and then 15 and older.
15 and older.
Okay.
So let's do the national scale. So when you are 6 years and older, it's comprised of these two. So that's 96.3%. Let's look at those who are 11 years and older, 96.2%, that's a decline. And then 15 years and older, 96.1%.
Okay.
So
that's for English language at the national level.
Grow, there's a slight decline in terms of the percentage.
Okay.
If you compare that to 6 years and older. And you can also do the rural and urban
as well.
Let's look at it.
The Ghanaian language, yeah.
That's our focus. So on the national scale, those who are 6 years and older, 52.8%. And then those who are 11 years and older, 54.4%. Again, an increase, actually, this is good news.
Yeah.
And then when you come to those who are 15 years and older, 54.9%, also an increase.
So you see generally that as people grow, they become better with the Ghanaian language, even though if you compare with the English language literacy, it is relatively low.
Exactly. So that's what you have. So now let's zero in on the Western region, where Justice Beidu filed was about the Wassa language. So these are the languages that
spoken in the Western region.
Exactly. So one can read and write.
Okay.
So if you look at the Ekrapim Chi, we have just 3.4%. Asante Chi being the second highest with 30.8%, and Fanti obviously is the highest, with 55.8%. And Zema 13.1%. The Ga language in the Western region.
Oh, that's Ga?
Exactly, 1.9%. Dangwe is 0.3%.
Ever as well, 3.6%. Dagbani 0.3%, Gonja 0.1%.
The Gari 0.5%. Kasam 0.1%, and Runi 0.2%. Now, if you take a critical look at this, you realize that there is no
Wassa is not there.
Exactly.
And that is the problem, which is what we are highlighting in our Ghana Man series. Kofi, thank you very much for bringing us that data. You're watching Johnny's Prime with me, Ernest Mean. Now, organized labor and government have come to an agreement that there's an urgent need to review the single spine pay policy to ensure fair remuneration for workers. The introduction of the pay policy over the decade ago was meant to address pay gaps and address also worsening conditions of service of employees. Labor unions say their service conditions, however, have worsened. Reading the communique at the end of the 2022 Labor Conference in Kwewu, Minister for Employment and Labor Relations Ignatius Bafwewa noted that the review is expected to be completed by March and the roadmap for the implementation adopted.
On our second thematic area, i.e. salaries, conditions of service and productivities, these were the outcomes. Government should review the single spine pay policy to address the current issues of salary inequities, inequalities, weak salary administration, and weak management of conditions of service. In this regard, government should constitute a technical committee by end of March 2022 to undertake a preliminary review of the single spine pay policy, including cost implications, and advise government on addressing these issues. The review should be aligned to the next budget cycle. Thereafter, government should develop a roadmap of the implementation of the revised pay policy. To ensure sustainability in compensation payments, the social partners must work together to agree on a medium-term framework for adjustment of public sector pay and to work collectively to improve revenue mobilization. 12. Government should resource the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission to build its capacity to perform its functions for pay administration in the public service more efficiently and effectively. The social partners should work with government to review the legislative framework for pay administration in the public sector to support the reforms towards addressing issues including salaries inequities and irregularities, weak link between pay to productivity and sustainability of the payroll.
NK also urged government to address the issues of the cedi depreciation, high utility tariff, and the high cost of doing business, which is adversely affecting the living standards of workers.
Tripartism for building peaceful labor relations and a resilient economy on 28th February and 1st March 2022 was attended by representatives of government, organized labor, and members of employers' organizations. The conclusions reached at the conference are as follows. 1. Organized labor and employers should work with government for the maintenance of microeconomic stability and building and sustenance of a resilient economy for the achievement of national development objectives. In this regard, A, government should take immediate steps to eliminate waste in government expenditure, including completing existing projects, enforcing sanctions in the Public Financial Management Act, and plugging loopholes in subsidies, particularly on energy and water. Government should take pragmatic steps to address issues relating to influx of cheap and counterfeit products and promote domestic production.
You're watching Johnny's Prime with me, Ernest Mino. Still to come in business, rapper Trigmatic is raising concerns about why artists are retired before their time.
My dad plays songs from the 70s.
Yeah.
And even when I grew, I still heard him grow with that
with
music.
those songs, yeah.
You know, but now we shove songs away easily. Even not songs, even actors, actresses.
We retire them quickly.
We retire them.
And beautiful Becky is here with the dose of showbiz.
Hi.
Hello, Becky.
Hello to you.
How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. Let's
Great.
talk about Trigmatic because he's been talking about the entertainment industry on Showbiz A to Z.
Okay.
He made a comment about Ghanaians retiring talent really quickly.
Too early.
So somebody comes up 2 years after 2 years. Oh, he's too old. We don't like him. He's So this is his submission on Showbiz A to Z. Well,
spot on.
Yeah, Trigmatic right there. Let's talk about Kweku Afro. He is a budding musician here in Ghana. He's been doing music for 12 years. He's been
really 12 years and budding.
Yeah, he said he's a budding. Well, according to him, he said
he might as well retire.
So
soon.
I said, I asked him. I said, I addressed him as an up and coming. He said that no, he's a budding.
Okay.
And so we're throwing the spotlight on budding musician Kweku.
There are a lot of things a lot of people don't know about me, that I'm a producer. I produce my own songs. I'm a songwriter. I am a choreographer. Like, I'm almost everything. So very soon, probably coming Wednesday, I'm releasing a song titled I'm releasing an EP titled Another Side. So now a lot of people know me for being a live performer. So now it is time for people to know who Kweku Afro is. So in summary, for 11 years, this is what I've been working on. So now, I mean, what people know me for, let's look at another side of Kweku Afro. So I'm about to present that on Wednesday. So I mean, the song, it's 4 songs. It's coming Wednesday. The title is Another Side. So I'm showing another side of Kweku Afro. Exactly. So this my heart's being poured out on an EP on 4 songs straight, bangers only.
What kind of genre do you do as?
So Kweku Afro is an open artist. I don't, we're living in a world now where everything is possible. I'm not boxing myself. I'm not giving myself. Just imagine 10 years in the game, singing people's songs back to back. Just imagine the kind of experience or the kind of ideas I have built now.
Having been in the industry for 11 years, having covered few songs or almost all the songs, I just listened to you cover the Kevin Boys songs, fantastic. What do you make? I think you're in a good position to tell me about what you make of the Ghanaian music industry, where you think we are and where you think we've fallen short, and what we can do to make it better, especially for the budding ones.
Exactly. So with me, I have a strong feeling the industry is growing. It's gradually producing a lot of very talented and then very, very, very good musicians.
All right, he's got a good voice, and we wish him all the best in his career.
Looking forward. Well, he's actually out with an EP, so go check it out. Yeah.
Thank you, Becky, for bringing us Showbiz. That's all for Joy News Prime. I hand you over to Charles for Prime Business. I'm Ernest Minu.
Tonight on Business Prime, the Agric Ministry hints of a difficult year for government's Plenty for Food and Jobs program as Russia-Ukraine conflict escalates price of fertilizer.
What is happening in the international market, Russia being a country that produces a lot of fertilizers, with support of Ukraine and other countries. And the imminent war that is all over the whole world, supplies will be a challenge.
Also in this bulletin, Cabinet begins discussion on possible subsidies for petroleum consumers as the rising cost of fuel bites hard at consumers.
We ought to begin a conversation as to whether we as a nation ought to set a ceiling beyond which the deregulation is suspended for some government intervention to be introduced or not. But that's a conversation that we ought to have.
Also, Ghana's oil and gas industry fails to attract expected socio-economic benefit for ordinary citizens. We'll hear from a new report after 10 years of production. We have more coming up, but first, a look at how commodities performed today. Tonight on Business Prime, a report sanctioned by the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, shows the country has failed to attract the necessary socio-economic benefits from the exploration of oil. We have more in this report.
Ghana was likened to the Asian tigers and regarded as the star of Africa in the early days of its discovery. Indeed, initial investment in the oil and gas sector contributed significantly to the country's growth rate between 2009 and 2013. However, the slump in crude oil prices from 2014 led to a negative oil-induced growth in 2016. Also, the anticipated $1 billion of government revenue from 2011 onwards never materialized due to a slump in oil price and significant cost recoveries associated with the Jubilee oil field remedial works. In fact, the closest Ghana got to was $978 million in 2014, when oil prices traded around $98 per barrel. Ghana, like other emerging prospective petroleum producers mostly in Africa, fell victim to the resource curse, whereby the joy of potential oil revenues being used for development has been met with significant disappointment. The report concluded that the oil-induced growth has not been inclusive as initially anticipated. For example, Ghana's human development indicators have been relatively stagnant in the last 10 years post-oil poverty. Again, inequality in both rural and urban areas keeps rising.
Well, the Cabinet has begun discussions on possible subsidies for petroleum consumers as the rising cost of fuel prices continue to bite hard. The Deputy Minister for Energy told Joy Business that a recommendation from the National Petroleum Authority as well as the Ministry of Energy has been submitted through the Ministry of Finance for consideration. He's been speaking to my colleague Ebenezer Sabote.
Now the price has gone up beyond the reach of many Ghanaians, including myself. And so we ought to begin the conversation as to whether we as a nation ought to set a ceiling beyond which the deregulation is suspended for some government intervention to be introduced or not. But that's a conversation that we ought to have, because whatever it is, that subsidy that is made available to cushion Ghanaians is necessarily going to have to be paid for. Recall that we are in a situation now that because of some extraordinary expenditures that government incurred in 2018-19, energy sector payments, the banking sector cleanup, that then got compounded by COVID, and the expenditures that government has had to make has increased our debt stock to the point where now we can't responsibly go out there in the market and borrow significantly. But government has to pay down the debt and still raise revenue to meet the expenditure or development expectations of the Ghanaian people. Hence the introduction of the e-levy that we are battling with today. So if that decision is taken that government has to subsidize fuel, we all ought to know that post the issues being resolved, prices coming down, whatever amount of money that government would have expended would still have to be paid by all of us. And so we ought to have a conversation to see where it is that we all can get some equilibrium, that gives us all comfort. But there's a price for whatever decision that I'm only saying this so that in the conversation we can situate it in the proper context and see where we arrive at ultimately.
So when is cabinet expected to make decision?
Well, it's a process. It's a process that has commenced. NP has sent the letter to us. We forwarded it to the appropriate authorities, and it's going to be deliberated upon, and then a decision taken. Definitely, that would be in the best interest of all of us.
And we shall keep an eye on how this pans out in cabinet to give you updates as and when we do have them. But let's now turn our attention to the cedi, because we do know that it has performed poorly against major currencies, and even the Bank of Ghana has been urged in this regard to increase interest rates in the country to help stop the free fall of the cedi. That's a suggestion from Chief Finance Officer at the Valley View University, Dr. William Zepra. He spoke earlier on the marketplace saying increasing interest rates would entice investors to purchase more government securities and help slow the depreciation of the cedi.
For the past 2 years, we have not been able to align the forex exchange rate with the Bank of Ghana exchange rate. So we create a room for what we call arbitrage situation. Once there's an arbitrage situation, somebody who is economically wiser, like myself, I will go and use Ghana cedi and purchase foreign currency and just keep, knowing that I'll get a higher margin on the foreign currency by holding it. So that is what has happened now. The 8% increase or depreciation or devaluation of the cedi against the dollar means that anybody who is holding foreign currency has gained 8.86% on that foreign currency. The only solution to solve it is that government must come out with a plan that will make sure that people will not be interested in holding foreign currency. And the way to do it is you raise your interest rate within the country, especially treasury bill rates, bond rates, the monetary policy rate. All of them must be raised a little higher to make our investment portfolios active.
Now, the Ministry of Food and Agriculture is projecting this year as a difficult year for government's flagship Plan for Food and Jobs program. According to the lead director of this major program, Seth Osei Akotub, the ministry was not able to meet the target for the distribution of fertilizer last year. The current conflict between Russia and Ukraine is going to pose an even greater challenge as Russia is a leading producer of fertilizer. Speaking at a soil health stakeholder forum organized by the Israeli embassy, Mr. Akoto indicated that the way out will be to rely heavily on organic fertilizer.
Price of fertilizer is set to spike due to the Russia-Ukraine war. Russia was the world's largest exporter of nitrogen products or planting fertilizer in 2021. This, the Ministry of Food and Agriculture is forecasting, will affect output of Ghana's Planting for Food and Jobs initiative. Here's Director at Crop Services Directorate, Seth Osei Akoto.
The volumes of fertilizer that you thought you could distribute last year, you couldn't achieve that. And what is happening in the international market, Russia being a country that produces a lot of fertilizers, will support of Ukraine and other countries. And the imminent war, that is all over the whole world, supplies will be a challenge. And as a ministry, we have anticipated that based upon what happened last year. So instead of putting all our eggs in one basket, you are trying to expand the organic base.
An NGO and pool of private fertilizer companies, African Fertilizer and Agriculture Business Partnership, says it will diversify sourcing to enable the meet demand of Ghanaian farmers. Nana Aisha Mohammed is country manager for AFAP.
Since the onset of COVID, we had a rude awakening to the fact that something had to be done in terms of improving local capacity for fertilizer production and also fertilizer blending. And that has also been increased by the current ongoing situation in between Russia and Ukraine, as these are big giants in terms of fertilizer production, fertilizer manufacturing. With new partnerships comes new opportunity and new sourcing. And that is what we intend to really focus on, is to see how we can begin to look at diversifying our sourcing opportunities beyond Russia and Ukraine.
Israeli Embassy, in collaboration with the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, AFAP and AGRA, held a soil health stakeholder forum. Israeli ambassador to Ghana, Shlomet Sufa, revealed that the forum is among many projects her outfit will contribute to Ghana's agricultural sector.
Our plans going forward are into two main channels. One is the economic and commercial cooperation that we want to establish here with relevant Ghanaian companies and investors. And the other one is to continue the work of the embassy, that we provide the cooperation that we do with the government of Ghana on numerous fields and sectors in agriculture and others.
He is head of Trade and Economic Mission, Embassy of Israel, Ayelet Levenkamp, explaining the purpose of the forum.
We see soil health as one of the important compartments of a good agriculture and strong agriculture sector. We feel that these days it's a very appropriate thing to be discussing and talking, since we see that there's a lot of changes that are going in this market with the rise of fertilizer prices, geopolitical issues now that are also affecting the supply and so on. And Israel is famous for thinking a little bit out of the box, yes? And we feel that in soil health, the time has come in Ghana to do exactly that. And this is what this forum is about.
Well, we're still keeping an eye on the impact of the Russia-Ukraine conflict on global markets, including Ghana. You just heard a report of its impact on fertilizer prices. Well, a regular host on Marketplace Tech Business, Henry Kobler, assesses its impact on the cryptocurrency market, saying that it could benefit very much investors along this value chain. Take a listen to him.
From Thursday, we've seen a very downward appearance on the cryptocurrency market. But I think that what has been a good time is that I basically have been giving signals to people that this is the best time to be purchasing a bit of the cryptocurrency, which is really not a financial advice, but sort of the point where the cryptocurrency market seems a bit of a downward appearance. My projection really is looking a bit on it, because we've seen almost Bitcoin rise from the fall to almost about $34,000 to today's stock market, which is actually showing almost about $45,000, which is a very good indication just within 5 days. Now, I'm just looking at a lot of people resorting to the cryptocurrency market, especially for the Russians, because they are looking at moving quite a number of amount of money, usually through the cryptocurrency market, because most of the power pack countries are taking strict sanctions on Russia, where they're closing off for the swift communications on the banking sector. And so Russia relatively just looking at almost about $50 billion, moving in and out of Russia usually in a day. And so the cryptocurrency market sort of gives an advantage. What's really not playing out so well is because of the downward trend for the cryptocurrency, the currency for Russia itself, the ruble currency. And so a lot of the liquidations, which we're expecting from the cryptocurrency market in Russia, is not going as it should be. But definitely, I would say that it's having a downward point for them. But people that are really doing a lot of trade in the cryptocurrency will be seeing some light in the cryptocurrency market. And so I'm looking at a bit of projections really high on the market.
Interesting. But how bad have or could Ghanaian investors been affected by, this particular trend, not just with crypto, but blockchain as well?
Exactly. So I'm just saying that when it gets down to that point, usually you would see the downward side, which I'm sure that a lot of the traders really are used to the very downward trend of crypto. But it's really going to affect especially traders in Ghana who are looking at making or cashing in some money from it. They would actually see a bit of downward trend, which cannot really be a bit of surprise, but it's more about knowing and understanding how you're going to use algorithms to trade at this time, and also being a bit cautious because you can't really predict what's really going to happen. Like my projection was just looking at a lot of people trending or going into the cryptocurrency, or even now building new trends or coins in the crypto market. I've also seen that it's liquidations has also tend to be a problem, especially for people that want to get their money out. But like I said, Bitcoin itself or any of the cryptocurrencies has been a major part of donations, where people are sending a lot of donations through to Russia. And so then you could realize that there's a lot of dependency on the cryptocurrency market and on the blockchain network as well. And so the blockchain network relatively is going to give a bit of advantage for people that are developers and are looking at bringing up solutions on the blockchain market. But again, we're also looking at how people who are traders and are looking at the day-to-day cash out of some funds going to fare on the market. And so for me, I would see it as a positive light. It's a point where people could still jump on. I mean, Bitcoin has been a major donation point to Ukraine, that comes in for them to understand that at least the purpose of the blockchain and the cryptocurrency is doing well in terms of its purpose that is set out.
And we shall have more of the tech business on Friday with Henry Kombler. But in the meantime, you're still watching Prime Business. We're going to be helping you out with how best to spend your money in this segment of Money Lab.
Hi, welcome to the Money Lab. Today we'll look at what the GSE Composite Index is. In our previous edition, we looked at what stock market indices were. Today, we'll look at the GSE Composite Index, which was introduced in 2011. Now, the GSE Composite Index measures the performance of all listed equities on the Ghana Stock Exchange, so that if prices are on the rise generally, the GSE Composite Index is also on the rise. And if prices are declining, the GSE Composite Index is also on the decline.
All right, I trust you took down some notes there. Well, moving forward to other stories, 290 women are undergoing a special business mentorship program meant to economically empower them as well as enhance their trade. The 6-month training program is spearheaded by the local financial institution, Sinapiaba Savings and Loans, to address the issue of unemployment and poor business practices there. We have more in this report by Emmanuel Osei.
Piaba Mentorship Program launched in 2020 is meant to economically empower women, especially in the informal sector. 9 male mentees were enrolled in this year's program. CEO Tony Fosu says the growth of SMEs is critical to Ghana's economic growth, hence the need to assist them.
By their trade, by their manufacturing endeavors and experiences and small businesses, these are the people that hold the economies of the communities. Financial institutions, banks, savings and loans institutions and others owe the responsibility to support these ones to grow their businesses. But what we learned is it is not only in financial services in giving them credit or helping them to learn to do deposit, but particularly giving them training, giving them knowledge in basic bookkeeping, accounting, practical to their level of appreciation and understanding.
He said this at the launch of the 3rd edition of the mentorship program dubbed Mentoring the Next Generation of Great Women, held in Kumasi. The mentorship is expected to last for 6 months, where experienced businesswomen will train emerging business persons on how to expand and grow their ventures. Marian Jemfi is the program coordinator for this year.
The impact is felt directly in their families, in their businesses, in their communities, and the nation at large. Because here is somebody who may be timid, but after the impact through our training, because we do capacity building, then we also do networking among themselves, because it's a nationwide program. And then we also train their attitude, for instance, how they can serve their customers.
The first cohort under the mentorship program trained 150 women, while the second trained 225. Philippa Pia, a participant in a previous cohort, is now a mentor. She shares her experience.
I do bees making, bread making, drinks. I do a lot of things. As I started my business, it wasn't good at all. I didn't know how to manage my customers, how to manage my records. But since I joined the mentor program, I've been able to manage my customers, how I talk to them, manage my business and recording of my books and everything. I have been able to do it.
Sinapiaba Savings and Loans hopes to sustain the nationwide mentorship program to ensure growth in the informal sector. From Kumasi, Emmanuel Hussein reporting.
And here in Accra, Walmart Ghana have indicated that their Fortune Alumni Contest is part of the company's corporate social responsibility to give back to society. According to its marketing manager, Eduse Iraba, the initiative is to impact societies positively and also create a good brand for the community and company. We have more in this report.
Walmart Africa says it is poised to build a strong brand through such initiatives. The company, at the presentation of items to Achimoto School as a winner of the Wilma Alumni Contest, said it is ready to explore opportunities and support various communities in diverse ways. Here's marketing manager Iraba Eduse.
This is part of our CSR and also part of our brand engagement. The brand is a purposeful brand and always want to engage its community. Fortune brings us together, just like Mom. Fortune puts smiles on our faces. Fortune empowers women. Fortune empowers the young adults to be versatile in everything that you do. So in accordance with our purpose, we felt that there's a better way to activate this purpose and make it come alive and impact our society as well.
Wilma seeks to continue as one of the leading fast-moving consumer goods companies committed to processing, packaging and distribution of a wide variety of consumer products and brands.
Now, as part of the Ghana Month series, we look at the sculpting and painting industry as they contribute to the revenue of the tourism sector in Ghana. James Ishon visited the Accra Art Center to interact with some artists and has brought us with this report.
So tourism is a key economic driver in Ghana. The sector in 2019, according to the World Data Atlas, contributed 3.8 billion Ghana cedis to the GDP we have in the country. We are here at the Art Center in Accra to speak to a sculptor as well as a painter to know what they've been up to. As their sales have been dipping, or better still, they are making some increments in sales. So I have a sculptor here to help me know what he's been up to. When he started, the sales really dipped, or there is an increment in sales, especially after COVID-19. Basically, what are you doing?
This is a carved piece. But this film, it's a lion. The sculpture itself is the making of an abstract form.
probably a wood, stone, or anything you can carve. It becomes a sculpture because it's a three-dimension thing that you are projecting. So it's a making of an abstract out of a stone, a wood, or anything carvable.
At what age did you start with this?
Very early age, from my primary ages.
Now let's look at sales in sculpting previous years and currently. When you compare the two, what would you want to tell us about that?
With that, there has been a dip, a slight dip. That is the honest truth. But there are issues to how the whole thing got dipped.
What are some of the issues?
19 is the main issue that is globally, so it's affecting everybody. Because for instance, most of the artworks that we do here are being patronized by the white. But we don't say the white alone, because we have people in here also have money that love art as well. So they also buy it, but the chunk of the patronage comes from the outside world. So after the COVID-19, it looks like it has dipped a bit. So we are having our own slow moment, but for the business itself, it has its own two dimensions. There's a peak season and also there's a lean season. The peak season is somewhere July, August, September, where festivals like come in sequence from the Homo War, name it, any festival at all. So it becomes the peak season. For people, that time people travel to come and have a feel of those festivals. So it's our peak season when it comes to that time.
And that was James Ashende interacting with faces behind Ghana's sculpting industry. That's it for the Prime Business with me, Charles Ayet. I'll leave you with international business news, after which we have a special dose of sports with Gary L. Smith. Do stay with us.
Oh, sorry. Welcome to the sport. I'm Gary Osman. Just checking if the amount I have here can buy Chelsea Football Club, because if you have not heard, Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich says he's planning to sell the club. So I'm just checking 100, 200, 300. Yeah, he's selling for about 3 billion. Yes, thank you very much. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you see, Chelsea is going for 3 billion. And this is a long way from 3 billion. Now, in a statement on the Premier League club's website, the businessman said it was an incredibly difficult decision, and that's the statement there, which pains him. He also says that he gave stewardship and care of Chelsea to its foundation trustees following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In his statement, he says he will not ask for any loans to be repaid, and proceeds of the sale will be donated to war victims. So that's the statement that you saw as well. Says, I would like to address speculation in the media over the past few days in relation to my ownership of Chelsea FC. As I have stated before, I've always taken decisions with the club's best interest at heart, and in the current situation, I have therefore taken the decision to sell the club, as I believe this is in the best interest of the club, the fans, the employees, as well as the club sponsors and partners. The sale of the club will not be fast-tracked, but will follow due process, and I will not be asking for any loans to be repaid. This has never been about business nor money for me, but about pure passion for the game and the club. So, as it's established that my money is not enough, let's do the business of seeing what it means for Chelsea fans around the world. Daniel Harris is a sports writer in England, and I'm glad that he joins me on Zoom for this discussion. Danny, thank you for your time and good evening.
Hello.
So, how did the news come to you?
I think the way we all get news, I actually can't quite remember if I saw it on Twitter or if I got it via WhatsApp, but it'd be one of those two things, which I guess is how we get the news these days.
Yeah, so, I mean, Chelsea is a big club, not least in Ghana, where, you know, it's probably one of the top 3 supported English Premier League teams, together with probably Liverpool and Man United, you know. What does it mean for Chelsea fans, Daniel?
I think for Chelsea fans, it doesn't necessarily mean that much, because someone with money will probably buy Chelsea. So if that happens, then it might not be someone who's able to fund them to the way that Roman Abramovich is, but they can probably be largely self-sufficient enough to be able to still be good. I think what's more interesting is whether this, for Chelsea fans, brings any kind of reckoning, because ultimately the success they've been enjoying since Roman Abramovich bought Chelsea in 2003 did not come about via pure means. Roman Abramovich has done some things to get the money that he has done, and Chelsea's success is a consequence of the things that he did in order to get that money. And perhaps what's happening now with Abramovich deciding to sell Chelsea, given what's going on, given Russia's invasion of Ukraine and his links there, is an opportunity for Chelsea fans to have a think about the provenance of their success.
Interesting. Now, speaking about that, it's quite clear that Roman wants to sell the club very, very quickly. You know, yeah, I mean, it's been shocking how, I mean, if you watch the New York Times story, it says that he wants to sell it as soon as possible. And the longer it keeps that he doesn't sell it, the cheaper the club becomes. Tell us about those who are said to be wanting to buy Chelsea at the moment.
I read the owner of the LA Dodgers, Todd, I forget his surname, has been interested in buying Tottenham before, and I think interested in buying Chelsea too before. So, and obviously knows how to run a sports franchise in some way or other. He is a candidate. I mean, the thing is there will never be that many candidates really, because the amount of money required to buy Chelsea is immense.
Yeah.
And there aren't that many people that can afford to own football clubs, which is one of the many reasons why no one should be able to own football clubs, because football clubs are a community asset, a community resource. They belong to the community and they belong to the people. And English football in particular is now so monstrous that the only people who can afford to own clubs will come from places, not come from places, but will have done some things in order to get that much money that will not always be pleasant.
Yeah, so though, finally, back to those who matter the most, the fans. there's a lot of confusion among especially Chelsea fans about what the way forward for their club would be. Do you think they are going to lose the success that they have so enjoyed since 2003?
I don't think Chelsea will necessarily be as successful as they were then in any event, because there are people with more money now. When Roman Abramovich came, he had more money than anyone else in the league, but that's no longer the case. He's been overtaken by Newcastle, and he's been overtaken by Manchester City, who have owners who are even richer, who are even less concerned about what they spend their money on. So it's more competitive in that aspect than it was when Roman Abramovich turned up. But I'm sure that he will leave Chelsea in such a way so that the club will continue to succeed to some level. I mean, it is obviously possible that someone comes in and decides that they want to asset strip them or not fund them properly. Yeah. But it seems more likely that the amount that these football clubs make, it's possible for Chelsea to compete at the top end, and whoever comes in to still take out some money if he or she wants to.
Brilliant. Thank you, Daniel. And I'll leave you to your work. We really appreciate your time as ever.
Bye, everyone.
Okay, all right. So Daniel Harris is an English sports writer. They're giving us a balanced reaction, but what do you think? So let's go on to Twitter to see how the news has been taken. Roman Abramovich is trending second in Ghana on Twitter. Chelsea is trending first also in Ghana on Twitter. So which one should we go first? Okay, let's do Roman. Let's do Roman. Let's see what is trending on, Roman as well. This is the statement from the club. Let's see what people are saying about it. So Norman Baker says it will be, sorry about that. It will be better if a Ukrainian bought it. Fabrizio Romano has given a gist about it. Thierry and Saka says that as an Arsenal fan, I was always jealous of how Chelsea spent under Roman. I wish Kroenke were as passionate about Arsenal the way Roman was about Chelsea. Chelsea have had great players and coaches, but the greatest of them all is Roman, and that's what they say. We see BR Football also giving their. Simon Phillips is also a very, very well-known football writer, says that Chelsea were here before Roman Abramovich and will be here after. Chelsea had success before Roman and we will after. I am not fearful, sad but not fearful. If this is the end, then big gratitude and appreciation to a man who is a fan first and done so much for us as well. So let's look at a few from what people are saying on Chelsea, and it's just the various handles updating on the news about Chelsea being bought now. Now, this is what Roman's Chelsea have done. Incredible stuff. Premier League 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, FA Cup 5, EFL Cup 3, Community Shield 2, Champions League 2, Europa League 2, Club World Cup 1, Super Cup 1. And you understand why Chelsea fans are so pained that Roman is leaving. All right, so let's read it. Last comment before we go. There, and this one says, now smallest club in London, there's a Black Sheriff, one show money crack can buy it. Chelsea a team. And so that's a lot of things that you are going to see on Twitter in terms of their banter. Let's look at what some Chelsea fans in Ghana are saying. Felix Romark is a colleague who is normally on Joy News as a Hearts of Oak fan, but he's also a Chelsea fan. Romark, good evening.
Good evening, Harry.
How do you feel?
I feel sad, honestly. You look at the success that Roman and Chelsea have achieved in the 19 years that he bought the club. I think that you will feel sad, losing a sugar daddy like him. Of course, losing a sugar daddy like him, because hardly do you see people investing a lot of billions, into football, and they never think about the profit that they are making. Even with the sales that he has, put a team together to do on his behalf, he's just pushing that $3 billion that he's asking into a charity fund that will support victims of the war in Ukraine. So that should tell you that for anything at all, he's a very kind man and somebody who doesn't really mind supporting people who are vulnerable. So for you to lose such an owner, I think that it's very, very sad for every Chelsea fan. And we could see from the tweet and all the commentary that has been going on. But I feel very sad that we are losing a big owner like Roman. Anybody that comes in will surely want to talk about profit, but this is a man who, forget about the 1.5 billion you owe me. Just sell the club and let's put the money into some charity fund for the Ukrainian war victims. So it's an owner every club would want, and I doubt if Chelsea will get an owner like Roman.
Well, Daniel Harris, who just spoke before you, said they are even richer owners, especially in the Gulf than Roman, and you just pray that one of them comes around and even does better than what Roman has done. But quickly though, you know what's going on with Chelsea at the moment, right? You are losing to Luton Town.
I'm watching the game.
You are watching the game. Do you think this will affect the players in any way?
Of course, Gary. It's more like
your sugar daddy. They say your sugar daddy is in hospital.
Daddy is gone, so it will affect you. Maybe if you're a player who have signed a 4-year deal, a 3-year deal with £200,000 weekly, you might not know which owner is coming. An owner can come and say, I can't renew your contract. If you want to stay, maybe you need to slash your wages and all that. So the players themselves will worry about who is coming, just as the fans. Because trust me, there are players in the team that are more than fans themselves. A player like Hudson Gray, Mason Mount, Robin Loftus-Cheek. These are players that have been part of the Chelsea culture. Some of them were even there before Roman came. So psychologically, you expect that it even affect them. And yesterday at the presser, Thomas Tuchel got bitter when somebody kept asking him about Roman and Ukraine, and he said, "You know what? Would you guys stop asking me these questions?" Because at a point he got emotional, and I'm sure that in itself will get to the players, especially when it's just some few hours to this game. Chelsea is up for sale, and now they are losing to Luton Town by 2-1.
Thank you, Romark. We appreciate your time, and it was good seeing you at the wedding today.
Of course. We wish Nathan a happy marriage.
Right. So, away from Chelsea Football Club, but closely related. Now, you know that this Roman Abramovich thing was precipitated by one action. First, Russia invading Ukraine, and then in a more footballistic sense, the Czech Republic, Poland, and Sweden issuing a joint statement last week that they could not play in the World Cup qualifiers or the World Cup qualifying playoffs with Russia. Now, as a result of that, all the FAs around the world, a lot of FAs around the world, including England, said they wanted nothing to do with Russia, which led to pressure on Russian owners, including Roman Abramovich, in the Premier League. So now that FIFA have suspended Russia, let's go back to one of those countries, to Sweden, to see how they are reacting to everything that they started. Nima Taveli is a Swedish sports journalist, and he joins us now. Thank you very much for your time, Nima.
Hi, Gary. Good to be with you guys.
Right. So you guys were the guys who started everything. You, Czech Republic and Poland, you reported Russia to FIFA and said you didn't want to play, starting this chain reaction. What's the feeling like now that Russia have been banned or suspended from international football for the time being?
Well, it absolutely was not me personally, so I want to make that absolutely clear. Look, it was 7 days ago when the Swedish FA's president, Karl-Erik Nilsson, said that it's unthinkable for Sweden to play a football game in Russia or against Russia after the invasion and the war began. So they were very clear from the first day, and then obviously all the other federations in sports, in terms of whether it's ice hockey or biathlon or whatever it is, skiing or whatever it is, Sweden has been kind of leading the charge on this, saying that we refuse to play against Russia, and they're not, and they also have taken a very strange, or not strange, very unorthodox approach, in that even when FIFA said that Russia can play, but they can't play under the Russian, flag, and they have to be called, the Russian Football Union or whatever, Sweden and these countries just refuse to accept that. And that's fine if you're consistent. The problem is, though, that Sweden has not been consistent. Sweden has been Swedish football in particular has been one of the FAs who've consistently said that, we're football players. We do sports first and foremost. When it was about, whether it was in 2009, I remember Sweden playing Israel in the Davis Cup in tennis. the Swedish sports authorities, whether it was the Olympic Committee or the tennis association, said that no, sports and politics don't mix. Just as late as Sweden, I think 1 or 2 years ago, was in Saudi Arabia playing games in January as friendlies. Then all of us, then sports and politics shouldn't mix. And now all of a sudden, and obviously Saudi Arabia has been bombing Yemen. I think over 600,000 civilians are dead, and counting, I might add. So, they have opened themselves up to some interesting...
So I want to ask you, Nima, has there been, this inconsistency, and some will even go as far as saying this hypocrisy?
Hypocrisy, yeah.
Yes. Has it been pointed out by people in Sweden that why are you having double standards? Have people pointed it out?
Well, it is being debated on social media. Obviously, given the crisis that is happening now with the threat of nuclear war, essentially, that debate is yet to be had. But it is a debate that will be had for sure. If at least by those who call ourselves journalists and are actual journalists, we have a duty to ask these questions and say, well, what is the difference here? Is it because the Ukrainians are white? Is it because they are Christians? What is the difference here? Because there is no difference here. If you're going to be consistent, you have to be consistent. If you're going to ban clubs, if you're going to ban countries for invasion of other countries, there's quite a lot of other countries that are also on that list.
Quite a long list, isn't there?
Well, what would happen would that I think the next 8 World Cups would be played by, I think, Luxembourg and Monaco, because those are the only countries who haven't invaded. Every other European country has a horrible, how far do you want to go in terms of colonial history? You don't need to go very far back to just basically exclude everyone from it. So they have opened themselves up here to some serious criticism, and that debate must be had.
Yeah, time indeed will tell. Nima, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, Gary.
Yeah,
always a pleasure.
We'll speak soon. Still here on Prime Sports, like I've been saying over the past couple of days, this will be the new format. We'll be having it from 8:30 until 8:55-ish. Full 25 minutes uninterrupted sporting content. Let's come to Ghana. Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia has revealed that the government is in talks with the National Sports Authority to digitalize tickets to football matches across the country. How cool would that be, huh? And he was speaking at the official launch of the digitized National Assay Laboratory in Accra earlier today.
Government is willing to support any institution, public or private, which intends on implementing digital initiatives for efficiency. Actually, we've engaged the Ghana Sports Authority, National Sports Authority, because we need to digitize football tickets to enter the stadium. Because it takes a long time for us to... You should be able to sit at home and buy your tickets and go and enter the stadium without any kululu at the gate. So we are going to do exactly that. And you will see it in the next few months. We will all start using our phones to buy tickets to go and watch football in the country, inshallah.
So the days of buying physical cash tickets are over, according to the Vice President. Hopefully it comes soon so that I can keep my 1 cedi firmly where it belongs, in my pocket. Anyway, in boxing, George Ashi is confident that he can defeat former World Boxing Organization Africa lightweight champion Robert Quay as the two fighters clash at the Bukum Boxing Arena. That will be on Boxing Day. Ashi and Quay vie for the International Boxing Federation super lightweight crown, and Ashi was a guest on Sports Today with Nathaniel Atto earlier.
The game of boxing, if you're not black, you can move forward. So I think he's talking too much, and I think the ring will decide that night. Me, only talk I'm talking is just is to relax. We don't black in boxing. We fight in boxing. So
but the bragging, the bragging is because he knows he's a confident boxer. He's undefeated. He knows that he can do it. So that's why he's.
This is the first defeat.
This will be his first defeat.
First defeat.
I see.
Seriously.
I see. Now, tell me about your career and where you, at the stage you are at now. You've seen your ups and your downs, and I was asking your promoter a few minutes ago. Tell me about what runs through your mind these days, especially as you're building up to a big fight like this. This is going to win you, if you're able to win, will win you the IBF Continental Africa title, and it will get you up in the ratings.
Yeah, first of all, I thank God Almighty about this question, because it's a very big question. In boxing, you can start early, but you can finish. In boxing, you can start now, but you can finish. But in boxing, everything you have to pray to God that He should give you every way. And this is, I know this is my time for now. The hour has come, so I think I can do something for Ghana this time.
I see. Now, let's talk about training. Let's talk about what you've been doing in the gym and how your body is feeling, you know, at this time. The body and how it feels is the most important thing when we're building up to a fight like this.
First of all, I fought 24th December 2021.
Sure.
And I think I'm still continuing training. So I think I'm very, very strong and good.
So Ashi, I said he'll be fighting on Boxing Day. It's on March 6th, Independence Day. Sorry about that. And it's being called the Rumble to Freedom. Anyway, I'm going to free you from all my talking now. That's it for the sport. I'm Gary Al Smith. And just as we started, Roman Abramovich is selling Chelsea Football Club. And my guys have said that my Ghana cedis won't do the trick. So apparently this can buy it dollars. The only problem is that it's $1. So it can still buy it. I'm Gary Al Smith. Thank you very much for your time. All the best. Good night.